Hi, no prizes for guessing where I am back in New York. People were thinking that oil would bounce here, and we're getting that this morning. But it remains related to the regional banking crisis, which is hard to make into a positive. We do expect there to be a significant economic effect from regional banks' lending standards being greatly tightened. This is an interesting time of year for oil always, because we're coming out of winter. We're into the dreaded March-April spread for natural gas, which is really the flip from winter to spring effectively. And I can tell you it's an absolutely beautiful day here, not bullish for natural gas, which has been one of the problems with the oil sector. Although we continue to like a trade of being long Marcellus names, which we think have bottomed out, and short Permian, where we think the marginal deterioration in performance and things like wells and inventory is going to remain something of a relative pressure. On oil, what we expect to see here is significant ramp up in refining utilization here in the US. That should help squeeze crude higher, and at the same time the scale of the refining capacity that's coming back online, which is right across the entire spectrum from a new addition from Exxon and Beaumont through all the major refiners essentially down to Suncor up in Colorado. We're expecting significant resumption in refining activity, and that should, as I said, have a positive effect on crude. The problem is, will it have a negative effect on products? That will be dependent on whether or not exports remain at the extraordinarily high level that we've seen, which has been partly related to the French refining strike, which has been very supportive for global refining margins, with about 1 million barrels a day of refining capacity out. On Russia, well, we've got the nuclear thing going on in Belarus, which obviously is a concern and risks markets higher, and so that's also tending to support crude. And then this week, having only just, it feels like, finished Q4 results, we're starting the ring around with this week. I'll have calls with Devon and EOG about how the quarter's been, and one notably weak stock, for reasons that we're not really fully certain, is actually EOG, which has been really struggling. All of these names, unfortunately, at the margin have declining special payouts, so although their base dividends are intact, at the margin we're still in a dynamic, especially after the airdrop in crude. We're still essentially in the downgrade to special dividends mode, which basically is something of a negative. We'll see at the highest level, China is doing pretty well. Russian supply, unfortunately, remains very high, which is really the problem in markets. And economically, US demand is sort of flatlining, and that's kind of negative when you think about gasoline prices having come down a lot. So it looks like there is the emergence on the demand side in the US of demand weakness, and that's a concern for us. Overall, long term, we still think there's a major oil supply problem globally, and we still think there's going to be more than 8 billion people in the world who basically use oil. So the second half outlook for oil remains very constructive in almost everyone's balances. Unfortunately, we've got a while to go, 2 or 3 months to go, before we start getting into that significant tightness. And so the dynamic here, as I mentioned, we'll be watching the resumption of US refining activity, or the acceleration in US refining activity over the coming 6 weeks, and the effect that has on the market. Okay, have a great day.